Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us this morning. Today's presentation is entitled Outsourced Accounting Success for Your Not-for-Profit Association, Expertise that Drives Organizational Success. This is a one-hour session today hosted by Counselor Buchanan and Mitchell. And our three presenters today are Dominick Bellia, Amanda McWilliams, and Elliot Antokas. Dominick is a vice president at Counselor Buchanan and Mitchell, and he's director of the firm's client accounting services practice. His nearly 20 years of experience includes working closely with not-for-profit entities and other industry groups to deliver tax, accounting, and financial statement solutions. He has extensive experience providing outsourced client accounting services and applies his background in technology to develop efficient changes of digital transformation no matter where a client is physically located. He is proficient in several accounting software programs. Amanda McWilliams is a manager with Counselor Buchanan and Mitchell. She has nearly 15 years of public accounting experience with a focus on outsourced accounting services, tax and compilations for not-for-profits and other industries. She assists clients with business and personal taxes and has helped clients prepare their financial statements. Elliot is a senior accountant with Counselor Buchanan and Mitchell with 5 years of industry expertise. His client management responsibilities include outsourced accounting and audits for not-for-profit and for-profit entities. He also has a background working with international not-for-profits. Mr. Antokas' client-centric philosophy includes meeting the needs of CBM's clients with the highest level of integrity and personal attention. For those of you who have submitted questions ahead of time, they've been shared with our presenters and will be incorporated into the presentation. They will, however, focus on the contents first. If you do have another question throughout the presentation, please use the chat box available in the Teams room to participate. This session is being recorded and slides will be sent to all attendees later today. If you are participating on your phone, please email my colleague Austin Schweber. His email address is in the chat box, and include your phone number so we know exactly who you are. And if we don't get to your questions during the session today, please reach out to us after the session. Thank you for joining us, and I'm going to turn this over now to our speakers.
Okay, thanks a lot, Joe. What we want to do here is go through some of the benefits of outsourced accounting as we've experienced over time. We focus very heavily on nonprofit associations in providing our client accounting services. We believe very strongly in the benefits to the organization, and we wanted to share some of this information and knowledge with you for your consideration in the future with either your current providers or perhaps moving to an outsourced solution in the future. So first, what we would start with, of course, is a little bit about our firm. We are in about our 100th year. We're celebrating with many different ventures. We're doing 100 charities, and many of our staff and partners are participating in charities with nonprofit events, mostly with our clients, but not necessarily. We're also we also have a bunch of gear, T-shirts, hats, now masks, and as staff are traveling, although our travels have been diminished over the past several months, but as CBMers are traveling, we're taking some photos of our adventures with our gear on, and just providing some fun opportunities to celebrate the 100th year of our firm. It's a big deal. Going on 6 generations of leadership to prove the success of our firm. So again, Joe has introduced us already. That's me on the left, Amanda's in the middle, Elliot on the right. For the past 6 years or so, we've built a client accounting services division in the firm that's grown exponentially. Nonprofit associations in particular, you really get the services, the benefits of the service. And for many of them, they're small, and small enough meaning that they don't have the funds for a full-time in-house accountant, which lends the client accounting services to be a huge benefit for them. So if we can move on, we'll start with what is outsourced accounting, and I'm sure many of you already are familiar with what outsourced accounting is, but there are some misconceptions out there. Outsourcing your accounting does not necessarily mean, and actually does not mean, transferring your accounting to a different country or someone in a different country. It's actually outsourcing your accounting to professionals, just like you might outsource your payroll to a payroll provider. So it's partnering with a third-party service provider, such as a CPA firm or a dedicated client accounting services organization, to perform one or more accounting functions for your organization to maximize the efficiency and quality of not only your financial reporting, but also your procedures and processes. That does not necessarily mean that you outsource all of your accounting functions. Doesn't mean you may, if you have a CFO or a controller, doesn't mean replacing them necessarily, but it does mean, shifting some of the burden of the tasks or some of the lower level or even the higher level tasks to a provider for either, additional staffing, for internal controls, higher quality accounting. For most organizations, if you think about it, accounting is not one of its core competencies. It's not one of their selling points or skills responsible for its growth. So for an association, more than likely, it's not an accounting association. So really, to take your executive director or your staff's time away from that core competency or any of the core competencies is really taking time away from the growth or the sustenance of that organization. So consideration should be given not just to outsourcing accounting, but any function that's not part of the organization's core competency. IT, for example, marketing, things like that, you should consider outsourcing, but accounting is the main function. It's a very important function for the organization for many reasons, not just management, but also tax, compliance, audited financials, things like that, reporting to third party or board of directors. So if we can move on, next slide. On that note, client accounting services can be one of or many of a multitude of different types of functions. So you have financial statement reporting, which is the obvious one, monthly reporting, quarterly, maybe trends and things like that. Bank reconciliations is one that many don't think of, but in a small organization, having someone perform the monthly bank reconciliations who's not the person responsible for recording the transactions or generating the bills for payment is definitely a control that needs to be considered. So outsourcing to an accounting provider will strengthen or enhance those internal controls. Accounts payable, that could be setting up bills for payment. It could be setting the bills for payment. It could be coding to the general ledger and getting the approvals. Again, internal control. You don't want the same person setting up the bills who also approves them and also sends the payment or schedules them for payment. So in a small organization, many of our association clients that we deal with or nonprofits that we deal with are small enough that they don't have enough people. So maybe they have the board of treasurer on the board of directors, the executive director, maybe a staff person, administrative staff, all as part of the accounts payable process to create those segregation of duties, but also consider moving it to a higher level expert such as the CAS or client accounting service provider. Accounts receivable invoicing, same thing. We prepare invoices for many of our clients on a regular basis, and again, take the focus away from the director or staff from having to do those invoices. Monthly close and journal entries, that goes with the financial statements, but monthly close and journal entries are usually high-level things. Sometimes there may be routines, such as a monthly depreciation expense, but determining the depreciation expense, determining what needs to be capitalized, what's prepaid, what's deferred revenue, when is that revenue recognized. Those are all generally high-level things, and revenue recognition standards have been changing recently as well. So again, having an expert provides higher quality accounting in-house. Support with annual audit and tax filings. Most nonprofit associations may have an annual audit. All of them will have an annual 990, perhaps a 990T. So the accounting provider can provide the support during the year for those preparers and the auditors. Process design, customization, and optimization, that's one of the things that we take pride in, at least for our client accounting services division. We really analyze the software stack, the design of the procedures, try to minimize any inefficiencies, take out the non-value added tasks, and then we customize it based on the flow of the organization, who will be involved, how many people are involved, and then we optimize it. We're continually evaluating that and addressing any concerns there or any improvements that can be made. Budgets and forecasts, another high level thing. Budgets, usually once a year, towards the end of the year, you're planning the budget for the next year. But a forecast, especially this year, during COVID has been and proven to be very important for many of our association clients because, conferences were either shifted to virtual or they were canceled. We had to reforecast the budget. We had to see, how the rest of the year looked to shake out for evaluation of bonuses, for evaluation of, other measures to stay afloat, and of course for PPP funding and things like that. And 1099 forms, personal property tax, other information filings, including personal property tax. So 1099 forms, you may know that 2020 is the first year for an additional form. It used to be 1099 miscellaneous. Now there's 1099 non-employee compensation as well, which is new for 2020. That basically takes the box 7 from the miscellaneous and shifts it to a new form. So we help with, first of all, reviewing the general ledger, reviewing the vendors, making sure you have the form W-9, determining who should get the 1099s, and working with management to prepare and file those 1099s, and advanced planning capabilities. That could be, using the financial statements, using the budgets, using the forecasts to provide some high-level analysis. Cash burn analysis is one of the ones that we've been doing a lot during 2020 for COVID-related analysis. So client accounting services, I've explained many of the benefits, just going through some of the lists, but there are a multitude of benefits for outsourcing to a CPA firm. And I will say that when you outsource, many times you can choose between a CPA firm or just an accounting firm that does not do tax, it doesn't do audit, they specialize in the accounting. From my experience, I believe that outsourcing to a CPA firm is much better. It provides many more benefits because when you outsource the accounting to a CPA firm, you're working with accountants who are dedicated to your association's specific accounting, but they also have colleagues and they have different departments within the firm to either bounce off specific situations, get some different advice, or during the year to provide tax compliance information, revenue recognition, audit standards, take a look at internal controls. And we've seen many times with our clients that they come to us because they've been working with an accounting firm that doesn't do tax, that doesn't do audit, and many times they miss things like revenue recognition. So we just worked with an association that has restricted net assets or net assets with donor restrictions that are overstated by over $300,000 because their former accountants, before they came to us, didn't understand revenue recognition and releases from restrictions. So additional benefits, management time is freed up. And I said this before, but the executive director and the staff are probably better suited to concentrate on membership, engagement, building up conferences, getting sponsors for conferences, things like that, so that the organization can grow and not spend their time on the accounting functions, not spending time on recording transactions. In addition to that, if the executive director is spending time hiring, recruiting, managing the staff, it takes his or her time away from the management of the organization as well. And think about when a new person comes in, or if someone is terminated or leaves and you have to hire someone else, then many times that executive director is responsible for training the new person, the new accountant, and may not be the best suited to train based on experience level. In addition, you have obviously the other personnel matters involved, whether it be retirement, health insurance, or it could be time off and requests and things like that. So it also provides access to a full accounting department without paying for downtime, and minimizes the non-value added tasks. So oftentimes when there's a full-time person in the organization, the accounting function is not really a full-time job. So there are non-value added tasks that are then shifted to this controller or CFO or accounting staff that when you outsource, those tasks can go away. For example, things like, opening the mail, for example. What we do is we shift everything to digital or cloud-based, and that really helps in minimizing the non-value added tasks as well. Cost effectiveness, generally speaking, not always, but generally speaking, the shift to a third-party provider is more cost-effective than a full-time controller or CFO. And again, for the reasons I just stated, but But another reason is because of the access to a team of accountants as opposed to just one person. So when you're working with a team that has experience in tax compliance, auditing standards, internal controls, as well as accounting, but also payroll, the PPP, and COVID-related measures from the CARES Act, all of that is certainly more cost-effective when you're paying just for the things that you need than a full-time person in-house who may not have that experience as well. And so sometimes you have to go out and get advice from someone else. And certainly office space, hardware purchases, software maintenance is no longer needed. So when you don't have someone in-house and you're working with the outsourced accountant, you no longer have to worry about the computers, the software, the maintenance of that, the backups of the accounting software. One experience that we've had, we use QuickBooks a lot, and one experience that we've had in the past is with QuickBooks desktop version, for example. The organization is responsible for backing up those files, but many people are very good about backing up, whether to the server or it used to be to tapes and whatnot. But one thing they never do is test the backups and make sure that they work if something were to happen. So to take those responsibilities away, are huge benefits. In addition to that, we have knowledge that an in-house person may not have. Number one, we can apply knowledge from our experience with other organizations, other clients that we provide the accounting services to your organization. So whether it's internal controls or again, high-level considerations, then it's very easy to apply what we've learned with a different client and provide those benefits to you. Enhanced internal controls is also a big one. We work with many smaller associations in particular that they may not have enough people, as I said before, to create or have strong internal controls. So when you have someone who's well-versed in what is a strong internal control, they then can advise you on maybe some lacking controls that are in place, or even providing that extra layer to create that segregation of duties. Continuous monitoring for improvement and efficiencies. One thing, and this is not always true, but one thing that we've experienced over time with many of our clients or many organizations that come to us to talk about client accounting services is that they feel that their in-house personnel have no incentive to do things faster or better, or to change software, or to explore other opportunities or explore other solutions. So with an outsourced provider, there is incentive there because they want to do things faster for you, spend less time on the non-value added tasks so that we're in a position to provide high-level advisory services. Bookkeeping is a part of accounting services, but it is not what the client accounting services is made up of. The goal is to provide as much automation with the bookkeeping and transactional accounting so that the higher level compliance and advisory services can be visited with the executive director and management. And the expertise, again, dedicated research. Our firm, for example, I know many CPA firms out there have spent much of the past several months learning and reading about and thinking about strategies for the CARES Act, the PPP loan, the EIDL, various other loans out there. There's grants with different counties and the states. And we have the expertise to be able to advise on that. Whereas an in-house person may not have the time for that, may not have the resources for it. And same thing with the tax laws. A couple years ago with the new tax laws, there were some provisions out there such as the taxability of parking benefits that is not always obvious to someone who doesn't work in the tax realm. And FASB updates out there, lease standards, revenue recognition, even changes in terminology such as net assets with or without donor restrictions. All of that is important for someone to know. And again, oftentimes an in-house person may not know that. So working with a client accounting services provider will provide those benefits to you. And so with that, I guess I'll turn to Amanda, right, for the next section. Or Elliot.
It'll be me. Thank you, Dominic, for going over all of the benefits. We would like you to keep all the benefits in mind as we transition into the next kind of section of our presentation. And as we continue through this, we'd like for you to think to yourselves, what type of solutions are available to you and what are your needs? And we've been able to provide accounting services to all sizes of organizations through cloud-based solutions. Within a couple of days, we'd be able to get associations and other entities up and running. We feel that our design and processes are scalable, so as you grow, we will be able to service your association and organization without hesitation, and we do this through a 4-step approach. What we first select the team, we have about a dozen client accounting services, accountants dedicated to servicing your association. We analyze what your needs are. We'll select the team. Then we'll select the software stack that's most applicable to you. We'll perform the onboarding and integration, which, as we said, takes a couple of days at least. And then we'll, as we continue to work with you and partner with your association, we'll evaluate and improve any processes or procedures that we identify. So CBM really believes in the team approach. We are a trusted advisor in your corner. We have a wide array of expertises, payroll, unrelated business income tax, complex revenue recognition, analysis and forecasting. We are constantly learning. We apply what we learn from other associations, and we'll be able to apply to your association. So it's this constant feedback and improvement that the team approach really benefits for. One of the perfect examples is Amanda and I work together on a lot of clients, but she also works on other associations. And when she learns something from those associations or any sort of updates, she'll be the first person to alert me, so that we're constantly learning from each other. You'll have access to a full accounting department at your disposal. There will be we'll have various accountants processing accounts payable, doing invoice and receivables, month-end closing, reconciliations, and it's really an expanded skill set and broader knowledge than a single accountant. A single accountant would only be able to apply attention to maybe a few entities and associations, and especially an in-house accountant would only be focused on performing the procedures dedicated to the association. With a team approach, you'll have an entire team of skill sets, broader knowledge, and other analysis that we'd be able to apply to your association. And as mentioned before, we'll have experience with special situations working with our other clients, and we'll be able to apply what we learned to your association. And we would not hesitate to call you with what we learn as well. More advantages to the team approach: faster response time and limited interruptions in service due to time off or availability. I'm sure everyone's experienced this when your in-house accountant is on vacation and things kind of come to a halt. With our team approach, we do not have interruptions or service delays, especially with the procedures and modules that we were able to develop. If I go on vacation, and I tend to go on very extensive vacations, we have an entire team to be able to back up. So for your accounting needs, there will be no delay. There will be no interruptions. It will be as if you have an entire dedicated department to you. Built-in review and multiple sets of eyes. This is really important, especially for small organizations with one or two bookkeepers, is that who is reviewing the accountant? In our case, with the team approach, we'll have multiple sets of eyes. It goes through multiple rounds of review, it goes through multiple rounds of approval, and there's this constant feedback and improvement going on, so that there's the most efficient and way, highest quality, most accurate reporting that your association can receive. Outsourced accounting providers who are part of a CPA firm have additional experts and resources available for proactive solutions and advice. and this is really important because I'm one of those young accountants that really enjoys asking every and any question to anyone that will listen to it. And it's really great because I have dozens. CBM is a firm of 100 employees. I have dozens of accounting professionals that I can go to for any sort of tax advice, audit advice, compliance, documentation, so that it happens almost through Microsoft Teams, the Teams approach, and how versus with a sole practitioner or with an in-house accountant, these resources won't be entirely available to them. So when thinking about going through your outsourcing your accounting function, consider the differences between a CPA firm and a sole practitioner as well. Each will have its advantages and disadvantages, but we kind of listed the team approach of the advantages to a CPA firm entirely. So one of the big things that we have identified as the team approach brings is the segregation of duties. Segregation of duties is an internal control function that mitigates control deficiencies and prevents errors and fraud. So we listed a couple functions that no one person should do two or more of these. Initiate the transaction, approve, record, reconcile, handle the assets, and review reports. So if someone is processing the mail, writing the checks, entering them into QuickBooks, reconciling the bank statement, and then creating the financial reports, there's a lot of chance for error and fraud. Without a second set of eyes, any sort of review or approval, this is a very likely possibility. And with the CPA firm coming in, especially for small associations, a CPA firm will be able to provide that second set of eyes or additional staffing for these key internal control issues, and it's really not available with with one or two people, especially in associations that are on the smaller side. So we're going to move on to step 2. Amanda's going to talk about all the software that we have available for associations. Let you take it away.
Okay. One of the most important parts of outsourced accounting is selecting your software stack. And a big consideration is that you want to generally move to more digital, more in the cloud, and stop the paper. Paper makes me anxious because I know how easy it is for a document to get lost. You have to store it somewhere. It takes up space. If you want to go find it, you're digging through stacks of papers or files, so it's hard to find things. And if you have an annual audit and the auditors ask for, a list of all of these invoices to pull, your staff can spend a whole day pulling papers for auditors. But if you use an online bill pay or an online invoice software, you just give the auditors access and they can jump right in there and find whatever they need to find. Let's move to the next slide. Okay. So again, paper just takes more time, more space, and it's harder for internal controls because paper is easier for someone who shouldn't have access to access it. But online, you can set up internal controls and different access levels for different employees or your accountants or your auditors. Some people can only view something, somebody can approve something. And in times of crisis, especially over the past few months, I think a lot of nonprofits and for-profit businesses have realized how difficult it is to have to physically be in the office where mail is coming in, or you have paper documents in the office that you need to physically be present for. If you have online or cloud softwares, you can access those anywhere. You can work from home, your employees can work from home. Nobody has to physically come into an office. So the past few months have really changed the way people are looking at digital programs. And in addition, a lot of associations are going totally remote. So they'll have employees spread all over the country. It can even be all over the world. So you're not limited to just hiring people in your city. You can have somebody work in Maine and another person work in Florida. And when you are a virtual association, you also need a virtual accounting system that people can access from all different areas and not be tied to checking the mail in one office. Let's go to the next slide. So this is kind of an intense graphic, but it shows how all these different software applications can feed into the general ledger, and out of your general ledger you get your financial reports and your you can get your key performance indicators. So it's really important to get the right accounting infrastructure for your kind of entity. There are a lot of different types of software you can choose from, and you need them to all kind of work together and integrate with each other. For example, you want your, if you use an online bill paying software, you want that to be able to feed into your accounting software to reduce duplication of coding your expenses. And we try to reduce duplication as much as we can. So for example, if you use an online bill pay software, you will code the expenses in there, and that's the same place where you somebody approves and pays the bills, all done in one place, and then it automatically syncs into your accounting software, so you don't have any additional work to do. Again, the benefits of the cloud are that you can access it anywhere, anytime. You don't have to be physically in your office tied to a network. So you can work from home, work from your extended vacations if you're Elliot. To me, probably the best part of it is that somebody else is responsible for the security, maintenance, updates, and backups. So you don't have that risk of losing all of your data, which happens a lot to people who are not on the cloud. And I know, for example, QuickBooks Online has really great software support. So a few weeks ago, I spent, I think, 2 hours on the phone with them so they could fix an issue I was having. So it's great to just kind of shift the IT responsibility elsewhere. Selecting your software stack is really important because, as we said earlier, you really want to reduce the redundant data entry. You don't want to be coding your expenses more than one time. It's also great if you can get something to see real-time information rather than waiting until, you know, a month, 2 months, even, you know, at the end of the year until you type all of your expenses into some sort of software like desktop QuickBooks or Excel to see where you stand. If you use these softwares on the cloud that are updated daily, you can see where you stand a lot easier. So it can also be more reliable because it's more up to date and can speed up your decision-making time. So one of the more important softwares, especially for an association, is your CRM software, your customer relationship management software. And you don't need to track all of your customer information in your accounting software. That's not probably the best use of it. But if you keep it all in your CRM software, then you can just run a month-end report to give to the accountants to put into your software. There's no need to go digging into your accounting system to see what customer member paid this last year, donated this, over the prior years. If you use a good CRM software, you can get really good reports of member transaction history. And it will track your memberships and your sponsorships and event registration. And you can keep a lot more information about your members in these softwares that you can't do in an accounting software. So that can help improve your relationships with members and potential members. So you can add potential members in these and help grow. There's a lot more options if you use a CRM software rather than just tracking your revenues in an accounting software.
Well, thank you, Amanda. So we went over, we selected our team, we're selecting our software stack, we got you all set up, and now we're going to start the onboarding and integration process. So some of the steps that we take to onboard and integrate is we'll evaluate your current process and procedures and we'll adjust them to make it more efficient. We'll implement your software stack, we'll provide training, it'll be a seamless transition into the new processes. We'll train the staff on the selected software, and then we'll goals and expectations for timely and effective reporting. We'll set goals of when you'd like reports, when we expect our reports, and we make sure that everything is going on a roll. And then once we get going, we'll recommend areas of improvement if we see things that we think that would benefit your association. And believe it or not, our CAS team actually handles most of CBM's accounting functions. We do have an internal controller, but the CBM CAS team provides a lot of support, the same sort of functions that we would provide your association. So if it works for us, it'll definitely work for you. One of the things that we have encountered is that a lot of larger associations, even medium-sized associations, still keep an in-house CFO. And although we can take over the functions of a CFO, outsourcing your accounting functions can be compatible with already maintaining a CFO. So the CPA firm will do all the heavy lifting. We will do all the processes, procedures, month-end closing, producing the final reports, that internal review and approval process that we discussed in the teams section, constantly update softwares, and the CFO will no longer have to perform these tasks. The CFO will no longer have to reconcile the bank statement, review the staff's work, perform the routine tasks, do any coding, take over for the staff when they are on an extensive vacation through Europe. And now that there's a CFO, has all their free time, is no longer doing these tasks, all their free time is being able to spend more time on the bigger picture tasks. The CFO can do all the planning, all the budgeting, analysis, and management. So if your association already has a CFO and you're saying, oh, well, we don't really need an outsourced accountant, we got one, I would recommend considering having some sort of hybrid model, because it's not incompatible. It's very much so compatible. And as mentioned, the CAS does a lot of the accounting function for CBM, but we still kind of have a similar model to this with our controller and COO and all the partners as well. So now that we selected your team, we have the software, we onboarded, and we got the ground rolling. As we were discussing this last step, evaluating and improving, we were thinking about using the title coasting. But if you think about it, we're not coasting anymore because we're constantly evaluating and improving. As mentioned earlier, Dominick said that we have incentive to make things more efficient, to make things better, more accurate. We're constantly changing processes and procedures, alerting our clients to new things. And not only that, we have a lot of compliance assistance that we are required. And this was especially apparent in March and April during the CARES Act. The U.S. is routinely changing compliance regulations for the Pandemic Relief CARES Act and even the 2017 Trump Tax Act, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So we have an entire dedicated team. We have an entire dedicated coronavirus research center. We are constantly looking at the new compliance regulations. Our clients are constantly emailing us about questions. What do we do with the PPP loans, other programs that Dominick mentioned? So we have multiple experts that track new programs available to associations, and not only track any compliance procedures, but we're tracking potential compliance procedures as well. We are reading the news, we are reading any sort of press briefs so that we can anticipate what Congress is planning. Is one of the advantages that a CPA firm has over sole practitioners. Sole practitioners would not be able to provide immediate resources regarding changes because they are entirely dedicated to performing the accounting functions. Whereas in our scenarios, Amanda can say, all right, I'll do the reconciliation. You go look up this CARES Act, or vice versa. And we are able to provide assistance from across all branches. We are able to provide tax, audit, outsourcing, because all of us have experience in these areas. And if we don't have experience, we have someone right down the hall, or in this case on Teams, maybe down the street, depending on where we live, and that we can always go to and ask for advice and questions. So evaluating and improving, one of the things that we love recommending to our associations that we work with are KPIs. And KPIs are the key performance indicators that measure the and evaluate success of your entity. So it's essentially a visual representation of your financial statements that are a lot easier to follow than a listing of numbers. Because how many times have you gone into the board meeting, issued the financial statements, provided them to your board, or even in a meeting, and everyone just kind of sits there and goes, and looks through the financial statements, and it's very overwhelming. However, if you put it in a visual representation, it's a lot easier to track. So we have a couple of examples in this scenario, in this presentation. In this case, we do revenue tracking, where we track the revenue for one organization, and then we compare it to the prior year. In this case, you will see that as of May 2020, the revenue was a lot lower than May 2019. And we can provide analysis, because in this association's scenario, in 2019, they held their large conference in May 2019. In this case, because of COVID, it's projected to be in October. So we were able to visualize that. In these scenarios, we were able to track SG&A, regular general and administration expenses this year versus last year, and then as well as any investment trends. And we were able to provide analysis and observation of this. So these are some, and as you can see, and when you're looking at this, even in our presentation, this is a lot easier to comprehend and understand and review versus just looking at a listing of numbers in a financial statement and maybe a comparative balance sheet. So I'm going to pass this off to Dominick. He's going to wrap it up and continue about remote working and quarantine and our outsourced practice in this environment.
Right. So just wanted to touch on a few things that you noted earlier. Many of our outsourced accounting clients, in fact, nearly all of them except for a couple, do not have a CFO or a controller in-house. It actually works really well to take over the entire accounting department, the entire accounting function. However, we have dealt recently with some organizations that have long-term controllers or long-term CFOs, or they're just large organizations where there is enough to do after the accounting function is relieved from those persons to be able to justify keeping them on staff and creating that hybrid environment that Elliot, you mentioned before. But we do provide the entire accounting department for the organizations, and that works well also. In addition to that, you did mention that we're constantly changing procedures and process. I want to clarify that we're not constantly changing procedures and processes. We're constantly evaluating them, but there is a goal that you don't want to continue disrupting the flow. You don't want to have to continually train people. It's just if something works really well or works better, or if there's new technology, there are considerations given, to enhancing the features or moving to a different platform. But that being said, remote work and quarantine, this year has been very difficult for many of us, and very different, of course, as well. We have worked with many associations that were virtual and set up as remote before COVID, but many of them have moved remote after March and April, when the virus first started becoming an issue. So many of them, in fact, are evaluating or reevaluating whether they want to re-up their office space, their leases, because either the virtual environment has worked so well, or because they just feel like they don't need it moving forward, or for cost-cutting measures. But we are interested in learning, maybe in the questions section, some information how your associations or your organizations are dealing with COVID-19 during 2020, or if any of them have been virtual beforehand, and how that's going for you. If there are some procedures that have shifted to virtual or remote, to more digital, paperless, wondering how that's going for you, if you have any pain points or problems there. And of course, we're here for any questions or suggestions, advice, while you have us on the line. And I think while we're going through that, though, Elliot, we can go to the next slide. We'll just go through some upcoming events. We do hold virtual events very frequently through our firm for many different topics. You'll see here just a list of some upcoming events. November, we have a couple: financial harmony. We have investment updates. We have an investment and financial planning arm of our firm, which provides some really helpful advice throughout the year for individuals as well as organizations. Then we have some year-end tax planning for businesses and individuals, probably not too relevant to a nonprofit association, but just know that it's there. And then there's some other ones before the end of the year. So with that, we can open up to questions if there's anything else you'd like us to cover. And on the last slide here, you have our contact information and the information on the firm. Okay.
If you have any questions, feel free to type them into the chat.
Right.